You spoke of authority and the authority from the lineage of the Israelite started with Abraham. Am I correct in saying that? You didn't touch bases on what those laws was consist of from Abraham, from the Most High to Abraham, and what did he pass on to Abraham through the Israelite? What was the laws about?
Well, Abraham trusted God by faith. It wasn't the Mosaic laws came with Moses, all the rituals and ordinances, but there's certain things Abraham had to do, you know, and he proved it when the father asked Abraham, well, are you willing to sacrifice your son? And he took Isaac to the altar. He was getting ready to sacrifice his son, and then the father saw that he was faithful. He trusted God. You know, God said, do it, and he did it. So that's Abraham's faith, was believing God and trusting him and doing what he said. You know, so in
other words, that is passed on to the people. The people saw what Abraham did and believed what Abraham would have taken out of his son.
Right.
In faith in the Most High.
Right. You had those that had the faith of Abraham all through Israel. Okay. But then you had others that trusted in rituals and the whole Levitical side. They trusted in ordinances, carnal ordinances, and those things. And you even see that today. There's certain people who are walking by faith, trusting God and moving out by faith, and there's others who are caught up into rituals and these ordinances. You see, these were just types and shadows to prepare us for the substance of Jesus. And even today, the rituals of water baptism and the Lord's Supper and the whole Levitical tithing, all that was part of the Levitical priesthood. And that's we don't need to trust in those things today for salvation. And so the faith of Abraham dealt with not trusting in those things, but trusting in the Father and obeying him, but not trusting in the little rituals. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback off that question of authority too. You mentioned that a lot of people have justified some of the most horrendous crimes of humanity in the name of taking authority in the name of God.
Yeah.
How do we as men today, particularly working from oftentimes such a defensive position, either coming out of broken homes or struggling with broken homes, how do we make this a practical application of the authority without, in essence, becoming abusive and allowing our own frustrations to dictate how we use the word in our family? You know, how do we talk to our wives and our sons and daughters and make them respect us and give us authority without having
to try to beat the authority, you know, to force it. The first thing we need to do is we need to come together like this. We need to come together and organize and unify and understand how to submit to one another. Because one thing, we can lead by example. If your wives can see, because many men, they want to lead by saying it, but they're not setting an example.
And so what I'm going to do right now is go to a film clip that was taken during the LA riots. At that time, I went out with my camera and talked to some of the people in the community to see how they felt about the oppression and prejudice that's been going on. And then after that, I'll come back to you with the message on racism.
This has killed the morale of black folks. If Rodney King was beaten and we didn't see it, then this would not have happened. But, I mean, if I sit here and punch you in the face, this man can only tell me what he saw. And she can try to tell him, I didn't punch you, but he saw me punch you in your face. And for her to tell me I'm innocent, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? If we saw this man beat to a pulp, Rodney King none of them died. And what that did yesterday to show us that black folks in America, period, have no chance if that's what they call right, if that's what they call justice. They can do that to get away with it and get the verdict of not guilty. I feel sorry for black and young men everywhere.
All men are created equal. We've been endowed with certain and inalienable rights. And when these rights have been denied over long periods of time, it is your duty. It is your duty to abolish or overthrow that government. That's what you're watching. Kill young girls on video, getting away with it. Beating down black men in the street, getting away with it. Over and over and over again. We're not standing for every state
I think they got what they wanted. You know, they've been treating black people like dogs for how many years? 400 years. You remember slavery days? They've been treating us like dogs for 400 years, and they got what they deserve. They got exactly what they deserve. Now they concerned. Now they stopping. Their whole world is stopping now to see what's happening. They're all concerned about what's happening in South Central. 2-3 weeks ago, they didn't care about none of these people. They didn't care nothing about none of this stuff. But now they're so concerned. Because this is the only way you can get their attention is through mindless violence, just like they did on Iraq. They dropped the mindless smart bomb violence on Iraq. And that's the way you get people's attention, because that's the way it goes in this world. That's right. And that's how I feel about it. What's next? What's next is the black people and Mexican people need to start building on their own, building their own stores and own communities, and having some self-reliance and using race first to further and advance themselves in America, because America's not going to do nothing for them. America bringing the troops when things get rough, but when there's nothing happening and everybody ain't working, people need jobs, drugs, and crime and violence all over the place, they ain't got nothing to say. It's like, let me get out the ghetto. I can't go down there. So next is what we got to do for ourselves. That's all. We got to come together as a people. We got to let this be the call for us to come together under the philosophy of race first, self-reliance, and nation. That's right.
We've been brought up from the past when I was a young boy back in the Watts Ride back in '65. I was about 6 years old. I remember that. And as I remember, I noticed that there was a lot of prejudiceness going on. We as black people used to stick together back in the late 60s and so on. I remember back in the 60s when we all marched together. Now when the 70s came in, I remember when Hollywood put a negative image on us, put a negative image on our black men and women, made the black man the pimp and the pusher and the black woman the prostitute. Now this time, that was in the 70s. Now this is the 80s. When Reagan became president, when he came in, I noticed there's been a lot of dope smuggling coming in our community. We as black people, we didn't get a chance to work together to create our working industry, to create our young generation to be raised up right, to know who they are, to get their proper education and know what we're living for. Now this is the 90s, and now we're living in the 90s, and we see this revives all over again back to the Watts Rides days. We got to come up together, my brothers and sisters. We got to unite and be together and create our knowledge and our unity and love together. Because we don't need our black folks raising them up to walk over each other. We need to be raised up to love and create love among each other. And this is something that I have not seen on the 34 years of my life since I've been here on this earth. And God is true. He is here to love you and me, to create this unity together. And I say, please.
Out in the street, don't worry about the thief, you better worry about the police chief. We'd rather have the inmates than have Darrell Gates and be living in police states. No justice, no peace. First there was quiet, then there was a riot. They're out in the street, the police, why you think they call it the beat and them the heat? You take your life out your hands going in the lion's den. I ain't lying, man, you could be dying. They say protect and serve, but I say, heck, man, they got a lot of nerve. Tell me, why can't they see that the Statue of Liberty is crying, the Constitution is dying, and Old Glory is not high flying? The Statue of Liberty, her torch ain't shining so brightly, but she knows they're lying to you and they're lying to me, and we're not free. Up against the wall, get down, down, down in the dirt and crawl. Put your hands on your head and spread them or else you're dead. Niggas, you heard what I said. Guilty or not, if you're black man, you might get shot, convicted and executed right there on the spot. They're making it hot out in the street because Tim was lying under a sheet. Him started running and them started gunning him down because him was black or brown. Racist white cop, you know, the kind that shoot and say, hey, stop, and another brother dead or lying in the gutter dying, and another mother crying, and a crowd gathers around, some getting angry, and some just starting to clown, because it really ain't no new news, it's just another case of the black man's blues. Under color of authority, police brutality. under color of authority, they brutalize minorities. John Jackson was a black cop, and like father, like son, so was his pop. Being a boy in blue don't help you when you're black, and they got a boot in your back. Jose, can you see by the red and blue lights? Hey, Jose, can you see what goes on in the nights? Black boy, brown boys, what you gonna do? Here they come, the boys in blue. They're kicking in the door, they batter down the walls, violate all your rights, and kick you in the balls. They'll beat you behind bars, they beat you in cop cars, and you'll be lucky to survive, come out alive with your scars. You'll be seeing stars. You could be Jesse or Michael Jackson. I am somebody, still gonna get the same reaction. Hey niggas, where'd you get that car? You must be a pimp, superfly, not a superstar. Shame on America, shame, shame on America. Put the blame on America. Name is standing for what it never stood for. Out in the street, don't worry about the thief, you better worry about the police chief. Rather have the inmates than have Daryl Gates. No justice, no peace. First there was quiet, then there was a riot.
God told Abraham that your seed would be in a foreign nation for 400 years and be oppressed. That's talking about us. Now I know we've been told that that 400-year period was the period that the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt. However, that's not true, because first of all, in the 15th chapter of Genesis, God tells Abraham that your seed will be oppressed in a nation for 400 years in a land that is not theirs. And Egypt is part of the land promised to Abraham, because later on in that chapter, God says that you will have the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. So that covers part of Egypt. Also in Galatians, Paul says that the covenant from Abraham to the Mosaic covenant was a period of 430 years. And so there's no way that the Egyptian bondage could have been 400 years. It was closer to 200 years. Because you see, also in Genesis chapter 46, it tells us of the 70 souls that went into Egypt. And one of those souls was a son of Levi. His name was Kohath. He was born not in Egypt, but went into Egypt with his father. And Kohath was the grandfather of Moses. And so you see, there's only a few generations there. And there's no way a grandfather, the son, and the grandson could have been spread out to a period of 400 years. For that was not a time period where they lived to be 900 years and so forth. They lived to be 137, 130. That was the ages of those men. And so from Kohath to Moses was not nearly a 400-year time span. That 400 years is talking about us. Jesus even said in the Gospels that you be scattered unto many nations. He's talking about us here as so-called black men. We have been scattered unto all the nations. We have been oppressed. What other people, what other race, nation of people have been oppressed the way we have? No one. And that is due to divine chastisement. We are being chastised for the penalties of the sins of our ancestors. Deuteronomy 28 clearly states that if you do these good things, you'll be blessed. If you follow my laws, this is what Moses was telling the people. You follow God and do the right thing, you'll have these blessings. If you disobey, these curses will come upon you. And those curses are dealing with us being over here in the United States and being oppressed.
I've talked to people, and I've told them how Christ is a black man, how we're the Israelites,
right.
And a lot of them, our people, don't like that.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, that's 2 Corinthians,
right.
The 4th chapter, verse 3 and 4. Because our people in Job 13 and 4, the lies that the so-called white men are taught our people
the truth been hid from us. You know, so he rewrote history. He's teaching his own history. He taught that God is white, Christ is white, angels is white. So he lied about everything. But now the truth is coming out.
2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3.
Go ahead.
But if our gospel be hid,
I mean, this news, this truth, go ahead.
It is hid to them that are lost.
Our people are lost. That's why he said, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Go ahead.
In whom the God of this world,
whom the God, meaning the power of this world, which is the so-called white man, he ruled. We're in his world, we're in his system, his society.
Hath blinded the minds of them which believe not.
They have been blind. They have blinded their what?
The minds.
Meaning, how do you blind the mind? Giving them false knowledge, false education, a lot of religion. Go ahead.
Of them which believe not.
Right. Go ahead.
Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them.
Job 13:4.
But ye are forgers of lies.
The so-called white man forged lies. And in Apocrypha, it tells you how he painted his images in there. So he forged these lies and taught that Jesus Christ was a white man, when in fact, according to the Bible, Hebrews 7:14 and Jeremiah 14:2, Jesus Christ is a black man, the son of the living God, the greatest man that ever walked this earth was a black man named Jesus Christ. And when I read the Bible, I found out that Christ had that dark skin. I found out that Christ had that woolly hair, so I said, he must have the royal color, he must have the royal hair. So then I had to think. I said, well, I've been taught lies that my color was bad, the hair texture is bad, and I found out that what this man have been teaching our people is a lot of false education. It's to oppress us and keep us down, and teach us how to hate ourselves.
Use scripture, slaves obey your masters, took that out of context to make us, think, talked about Ham was cursed and how all so-called blacks come from Ham, and this whole stuff, and we're looking to these so-called whites as the spiritual giants because we think that Christ, Moses, all these people. We see these movies with Charlton Heston and all this kind of stuff. And William Dafoe as Christ, and so we're all confused.
We're all confused, and I don't understand how my people can believe the so-called white man, because his track record, if he came here, raped, America was got through rape, robbery, and murder, steal, lying, and cheating. Now, then he came over here and set himself up and legalized himself. Now, he's the lawman. Now, he's the scholar. Now, he's the historian. I don't understand how they could believe what this man said after the corruption and how he done destroyed the so-called Negroes, how he done destroyed the so-called Mexicans and the so-called Indians. He murdered over 99 million Negroes in the Negro slave trade. He murdered over 77 million North American Indians when he took this land. And our people are still dying under his oppression.
So we want to talk about suffering because it's something that many church people don't talk about. They don't really deal with the issue of suffering. So we want to deal with that today. But before I go into the message, I want to show a clip of some interviews. I went out to Leimert Park and talked to some people in the community to see what they felt about suffering. And I asked them, why do people suffer today? So let's look at that clip.
I think that people suffer as a result of bad decisions. I think people suffer, for instance, for us as a people. We suffer because who we are, the color of our skin. It's part of the fabric of the American way. I think that we suffer because we take some pleasure in inflicting pain upon others. I think there are just a sundry of reasons, but I think that our suffering as a people has been essentially because that's the nature of the American society.
Why do people suffer? That is a question that has been asked for years. Especially many people ask, why even do the righteous have to suffer? Come to conclude that we don't have altruistic answers, just that suffering happens to be a part of life. Jesus even tells us that in this world we will have tribulations, but be of good cheer, he has overcome. We just need to remember that suffering does not mean the end, and we can have answers to our suffering.
The role of a black man is to stand firm on
his conviction, and that is being a man, a leader of a family. But we have young men and some old men now saying, well, we don't have any responsibility, so we let our females take over. And that is not the way to go. The man is supposed to be the head of any household.
One of respect, taking care of his family. Again, that ownership is taking care of his family, which also means taking care of the community.
And how about the women, black women?
The same thing. We need to be more supportive of our black men and love them. And it doesn't have to be a sexual thing, but I think it's a mental thing. We really need to love our black men. After all, I do.
The spiritual provider, the spirit to give like his family spiritual upliftment, just to stay focused with the Lord. And I think if the black man stays focused and walks in the spirit, that everything else will work out wonderfully for him.
I believe that the role of the black man should be, number one who is spiritually grounded, strength, and show unity and education of his people and his family.
Well, first it should be to himself. He should be true to himself, true to his God. Then he should be true to his family, his community. And as a person or as a black man, we should strive to be independent. We shouldn't be dependent. We shouldn't depend on other people for water and food and heat. We should have those for ourselves. And, I think if we got to that point, then, we'd be moving in a positive direction as a people.
Hey, what's happening in Africa? I love you. That's right. We used to feed children, and she used to help us back in the day. A lot of y'all used to feed the kids in the morning, and I see a lot of those soldiers out here with gray hair and stuff who used to patrol the police at night. When we patrolled the police at night, in the morning, we were there feeding those children. So that's something that's very important to understand, that our struggle was always based on love. And that was made us so strong, because that's the strongest force there is. We were so in love with our young children that we were willing to take bullets for them, and we were willing to die for them. We did so much. We would tell the police, don't do this, don't that. We died, we went to prison. That the people tell me now, say, Geronimo, and say, while we were keeping the police off our children, we were spoiling them. And said, look at them now, they're spoiled. They don't respect the elders, they don't respect the women, they don't respect each other. They're listening to the police. Man, seeing everybody showing proof that the shit is coming from the CIA, that you're still doing it. What the hell is going on? So while we were giving our lives, protecting the children, feeding y'all, going without eating and stuff, we didn't realize we were spoiling y'all ass. So when y'all came in the pen, you get discipline. And that's what we need now. We need discipline. We need youngsters to understand that real war ain't no joke. It's not easy to know who your real enemy is when you are embroiled in a psychological war. The psychological war, everything is a lie. It is based on deception. You have various forms of war. We conducted armed struggle down these streets. Walter Touré Pope, John Clark, Red, Sandy Red. I can name on a lot of brothers and sisters who lost their lives conducting armed struggle. You remember with the Johns, conventional struggle. We've conducted conventional struggle. We've conducted defensive struggle. We have conducted all sorts of struggle in understanding who the real enemy is and how he's coming at you. Right now, and for decades, the enemy has been defeating us through psychological warfare. He's been tricking you. He's been making you hate each other. He's been making you turn on your brothers, on your mamas, on your own family. He's been doing it through the media. He's been doing it through music. He's been doing it through all sorts enemy is. And a lot of times it's not easy because when you're looking at television or a movie and you don't see something that's there, it's like trying to understand the wisdom of the one-hand clap. If you somebody put on the screen, go snitch, and you're looking at a video, a music video, you don't see go snitch, but those subliminal suggestions are being embedded in your mind, and next thing you know, you're going to tell on somebody. See what I'm saying? I'm just talking about psychological warfare, understanding your enemy. You have to know who your real enemy is and have to understand how to defend yourself against that enemy.
The Leimert Park community had some very interesting things to say. You see, it's very important that we as black men take our rightful place in the church, our rightful place in the family, our rightful place in the community. And you may ask, what is that rightful place? Well, according to the Word of God, according to the 11th chapter of Corinthians, in which the Apostle Paul was teaching to the church at Corinth, he was telling them about divine order. He spelled it out like this. He said that the head of every man is Christ, the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God, the Father. And so you see, that's a basic order right there. You have God the Father, the Son, then there's the man and the woman, in that order.
I believe we should have our original culture restored, expanding to new cultures also, though, and maybe make a blend.
If we know what it is, we keep celebrating victimization every year, and although it was glorious how we got out of slavery, we need to know how we got into slavery, not because somebody come and took us. We need to know how we lost being rulers. And we need to show our children when we were rulers and what we did and all the accomplishments we made and all the teaching that we did to other cultures. And then we have to understand how we lost it so that we can get that back. It's not about how we got out of slavery. That was a moment in time in the thousands of years that we ruled.
Well, it's extremely important because basically we've been taught in this country to buy into a Eurocentric viewpoint. And because of that, everything from our physical appearance to everything, we've been taught that everything white is all right and everything black should be rejected for one reason or another. And things cannot begin to change until we begin to accept who we are. In fact, many people, I just grew my afro not long ago. You know, I let it go. And the kids say, why? And I say, because this is how your hair naturally is. You don't have to do anything to it. And white folks have taught you that either you have to shave it all off to be acceptable, or you have to keep it in some sort of straightened state to be acceptable. And it's time for a change. You know, it's time for brothers to realize that they don't have to shave it all off, that they're acceptable as they are, just as any white person is acceptable as they are.